Morning, everyone. As you said, I'm the business editor at Computer Weekly. We're here this morning to discuss the very important topic of how to get more women into the technology industry, which, looking at the audience, is something very close to all of our hearts. So I'm hoping over the next 45 minutes to sort of discuss the barriers that some of us are facing when trying to get into a technology career, where in the pipeline we should be starting to prevent this from happening, and what we can do to move forward. So I'm hoping also to have questions at the end, so if there's anything along the way that you want answered, then keep that in your head. Hopefully you'll get a chance to address it later. So here on the panel, going from my left, I think this is my left, yes. We've got Arabel Bailey, Managing Director of Accenture and also the digital lead. We've got Clare Cockerton, the brand ambassador and founder of Innovate Finance. We've got Jacqueline de Rojas, the area VP of Northern Europe for Citrix. We've got Russ Shaw, who's the founder of the Tech London Advocates. Sarah Luxford, who's the co-founder of Croydon Tech City, and Wendi Lee, product manager of viral growth at TransferWise. So hello, everyone. I was hoping at the beginning if we could just go along the panel and give a very brief summary of why this is a really important topic to you guys personally, to just share your experiences with the audience. So, Arabel?
Yep. Well, I've been in the tech industry for 24 years. I joined Accenture as a graduate. And I guess, it's important to me because I've been in the minority my entire career. And so for me, getting more women into technology is really important because of the diversity agenda, but actually also just because of growth. The tech industry is growing at unprecedented rates. At Accenture, we're 300,000 strong now. And if we're only drawing talent in from 50% of the population, then that's going to be a real issue for us in terms of future growth. So that's why I'm passionate about it.
Claire?
Hi, everyone. Oh, that's a different volume there. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always run my own organizations. And I love founding companies and being creative about business. I've often found myself the only woman in the room, and I've often experienced general workplace sexism, as I'm sure many of us have witnessed. So it's deeply personally important to me, and it's also very important to the work that I do at Level 39. It was a technology accelerator full of entrepreneurs. And it's very important to the work that I do at Entic, which is working with large corporations to help them be innovative. The reason is I don't think that we can be innovative and build products that consumers will love. And I don't think we can build sustainable, healthy organizations without equal representation from the genders, as well as diversity in intergenerational diversity as well, and multicultural diversity. I think we live in a global world, and we need to represent our consumer base inside our own companies.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I hit the glass ceiling so many times when I was going up through the ladder, and I think the final time was when I was going for a promotion, and my manager said to me, "Jacqueline, we simply don't have women on the leadership team." And the miracle in that is at least I knew where I stood, so at least it wasn't covert. So, my mission is to make sure that we send the elevator back down to help people in my position come right back up in an accelerated way. It shouldn't be that hard. I'm also really clear that the UK is the tech industry is a big economic possibility for this country in terms of growth. And if we don't include diversity, women, and those skills into our talent pool, we won't be able to meet the skills needed for us to create that economic growth. So that's why it's really important for me that we do what we can to increase possibilities for all diversity, specifically women, at all ages in their business growth.
Russ?
Yes, I run an advocacy group called Tech London Advocates, and we just did a survey of our advocates focused on women in tech. And the results, frankly, were both shocking and disappointing about the lack of women in senior positions, the lack of women, the lack of diversity at board level. And it's a shame, really, because our technology sector is one of the most vibrant parts of our economy today, yet we're missing a trick by not having more women and more people with diverse backgrounds in some of our most senior positions. I think this is not only a business issue, I think this is a human issue. And I also think this is going to require some very bold and some very radical steps to make changes, because as I've said to some of my colleagues on the panel here, I hope I'm not here in another 5 years having the same discussion to a group like you. I hope we can make some really bold changes over the next few years that shows that we can make a difference in this area.
Absolutely. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Sarah Luxford. I'm co-founder of Croydon Tech City. My day job sees me as an international headhunter working with C-level, board level, VP level, VCs in the technology industry. And for me, it's been disappointing, frustrating to see the lack of women on shortlists, the lack of women at events, the lack of women in the news. We definitely need role models out there in order to pave the way. And this actually led me on a quest. And Russ has something to do with that too. He invited me to form, alongside my colleague Nikki Watkins, the Women in Tech group for Techland Advocates. And we've seen this incredible transformation, because what we really feel is that actually we all have responsibility, all of us. And it's got to start with us as people, because we believe that diversity isn't a project, it's your attitudes and beliefs. That's great. So that's why I'm here tonight, or this afternoon. Yes. Tonight, it's been a long week already. And looking forward to being able to thrive that button on forward.
Wendi? Hi, everyone. My name is Wendi Lee. I'm a product manager at TransferWise. For those of you who don't know, TransferWise is an all-new, cheaper, and faster way to send money internationally. It cuts out the hidden costs normally charged by banks and allows you to save up to 10 times what it normally costs. For me, women in technology is an important topic because I think in the startup world, you still don't see many female executives. I mean, everyone knows Mark Zuckerberg, everyone knows Steve Jobs, but where are the female equivalents? And they're out there, but maybe we just don't know about them. And on a personal level, at TransferWise, we're quite lucky. The company is really gender diverse, about 50-50 male-female ratio. But you see female leaders in sort of traditionally female-oriented roles like PR and marketing, and less so in, for example, my area in product management or in engineering. So I would love to see more women embracing all roles within a technology company. So then, on a selfish level, then I can look up to those women and see where my career can progress going down the line.
Fantastic. So if we're talking about getting women into technology, where in the pipeline do you think it should start? I mean, is this preschool, secondary school, university? I mean, Sarah, you just said that it's about people's attitudes. Should this sort of thing start from birth at home, in the home environment?
Absolutely. I think we all have a role to play. At the end of the day, technology has advanced so quickly. We're finding now that not only do parents and teachers need to get up to speed with this, but also it's about giving that opportunity to both male and females from a very young age. That's why I'm so delighted with the companies such as Apps for Good, Stemets, who are doing incredible work on being able to help teach young children the opportunity of tech. I think it's an education issue, absolutely, first and foremost. But I also think, actually, I agree with Russ about this piece starting at the top, board level, because we also need to see visible leaders who are carving the way forward so that people can recognize themselves in others in order to drive that aspiration, inspiration to do better within their careers. So, yeah.
And Claire, I've spoken to you before, and you've said that introducing a computer science GCSE is just the first step. So where do you think that we should be starting in the pipeline to get more girls interested in this type of career?
Yeah, I would have to say at every level, and I'm really glad to see that there's changes in the curriculum here in the UK to encourage the embracing of this new language, the language of technology, by everybody. But we need to, right from the very earliest ages, encourage women to chase ambition, to chase entrepreneurship, to chase positions of authority in businesses, and chase the kind of creative outlet that technology brings us. So I think at every level, we need to start to address this problem. And I think it is a real cultural issue because other countries perform much better than us on these metrics. And I think it also needs to come from policymakers and regulators and real leaders in the media and in government to set some standards, set some aspirational goals for us as a sector and us as a society to address this problem, because we all have a role to play, and some of it is, helping young women embrace this new curriculum and embrace ambition in organizations, and the other bit is really making conscious steps today to reach out to those women in your organization, draw them up into positions of leadership, or to bring more women on the boards, because there's not a lack of talent. There is plenty of talent out there. It's just a matter of shining a light, making heroes, and then reaching out and bringing them into those positions, in my view.
Jacqueline, do you have anything to add?
I do. So I think that I was talking to a headmaster of a school the other day and saying, why aren't the kids engaged? And he said, firstly, the teachers of tech in the schools can't keep pace with technology. Yeah. So we need to maybe give something back from the tech industry and put some seconded people into the industry so that to help teachers stay ahead of the tech agenda, because we are moving at such a pace. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is it would be good, he said, if girls and kids interested in technology could go into tech companies to see the types of opportunities that are available, which aren't just the pure engineering tech-based ones, but are also very creative and appeals to the non-tech-oriented kids. So I think we have a job to do in terms of the language we speak when it comes to talking about technology, because it doesn't have to be all about version 6.5 release 3. It could be, what about the great outcomes we could create for our companies, our businesses, or for applications that everybody could use. And I think the language we use makes as much of a difference as the way in which we seduce kids into this subject.
Can I also just maybe mention the other side of the age spectrum, and to look at women 45, 50 plus who may have been out of the workforce for a long period of time. They were the ones at home raising the kids, running the family, running the household, but who did have careers, or who may want to have a career, who may have missed that digital awareness, that digital landscape. How do we get that group into the workforce as well? How do we get the over 50s who are saying, look, I was trained for a different era. How can I be more digitally equipped? Can I become a coder? Can I become a software developer? Can I become a programmer? And bring those skills coupled with some good leadership skills, because I think a lot of the tech startups and scale-ups that I meet tend to have younger people, which is fantastic, but I think sometimes the older folks coming into those organizations can bring a degree of experience and a degree of wisdom, and I think we should really be focusing on bringing women who are over 45 and 50 into these companies as well.
And Arabel, you seem to be agreeing quite a lot.
Yeah, no, I did. And I was just going to back up something that Jacqueline said, because we've been working with STEMettes, who somebody else mentioned, a great organization, who are really trying to bridge the boundary between industry and education. And so, they make it very easy for us to bring in, young girls, they're sort of 12, 13 years of age, and they come in and spend a day with us, and we give them a little project to do, and in this case it's around, developing a mobile app. And I think it really helps them see that technology is not just about the deep coding skills, but actually, it requires quite a lot of creativity, collaboration, teamwork, problem solving. There's many skills that you can learn and bring to bear. And we found that a really effective way. But gosh, the whole industry needs to get behind that, because we do maybe, 30 people at a time. There's a mountain to climb in terms of opening up girls' eyes to the sorts of careers that they could have in technology.
Yeah, because I think you're right. In some cases, it really does seem to be that there's just sort of a general lack of awareness. And if you don't mind me saying, Wendi, I know that you were saying to me earlier, I kind of wish that I had gone into computer science. So do you think what meant that you went down that different path? Do you think it was just a lack of awareness of what was around? Where do you think it should have started?
But I think for me, it was just my interests have also evolved over time. So back then, maybe technology wasn't it wasn't more available as a career opportunity for me. I just thought business was a safer route to go down, and but looking back, I wish that there was all of this buzz that we have now around computer science and engineering and science in general, that would have opened my minds to it earlier.
Absolutely. So even when we do manage to get girls and women in technology along the career pathline, there does seem to be a lot of drop-off, whether it's when girls reach puberty and then they sort of decide that it's not a valid choice, or whether it's when they get into the industry and then they realize that, if they were going to go and have children, that they couldn't then come back. How do we prevent this drop-off at different points in the pipeline? I know, Jacqueline, you've said quite a lot about flexible working before.
So I'm really keen to keep women. We invest so much time, resources, getting great women into great positions, and then obviously families start and we take the career break. I did it myself. I have 3 children. And I would like to find a way to encourage women back in. And one of the ways to do that is we live in the technology world where flexible working absolutely is a way around that. So work should not be a place, it should be where you are. And we should enable technology to make sure that we can support the talent pool in terms of being as productive at home or around the family hours as we are in the workplace. And I think also employers need to be more flexible in terms of how they look at women. I mean, I think, or parents generally. So if they can't see you, are you or are you not being productive? Question mark, challenge to the employers, I think. And also, I think, childcare is way too expensive. I mean, fact. And it comes out of taxed income. Fact. That makes life tricky. I know the government is making strides to alleviate that problem. But, if you look at other countries, Sweden as an example, childcare is minuscule in cost compared to here. I understand the tax system is different. It's not an apples for apples comparison, but I'm just saying, where is it on the priority agenda? And I think that it's not an easy black and white answer, but it's something that we can all do to make that shift.
Absolutely. Wendi?
I think that people generally tend to think that women drop off because of going off to start a family, but I think research has shown, as highlighted in a recent Guardian article, that a lot of women are dropping off earlier because of frustration experience in the workplace earlier on in their career, being overlooked for for promotions, etc. So I think this is where company culture plays a big role. If you have a company where women are given equal opportunity and advancement opportunities, and you keep them engaged longer, then that's going to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And I think at TransferWise, we work in autonomous teams, which means that each team decides what they want to work on and what they believe will have the biggest impact on the company. And for me as a woman, this empowers me to work on things that I'm really passionate about and drives me to work harder and stay engaged within the company and motivates me to stay longer.
Yeah, I would totally support what you're saying. I think there's great policy change that's happening to equalize the paternity and maternity leave that people are allowed to take, which I think then reduces the organizational bias we have to women at a childbearing age. I think there's great policy change that's happening. But I'd like to speak to your point on the cultural issue in an organization. and the frustration that women experience in the boardroom, in management meetings, in presentations, where we use different language to describe the work that they do and the impact they have on the business, where there are subtle signals that we replicate as human beings of our leaders. And so if our leaders or our management staff is demonstrating some undermining behavior or using perhaps different power politics tools to manage a meeting that undermines women, then we have a real problem. So I would say that that really is a strong force driving women out of these careers.
Go.
Just on that point with culture, I think it's absolutely agree with Claire. It's so critical that leaders are seen taking action. So whether it's a statement to publish it. Mark Benioff of Salesforce, he's just recently gone to press to announce that he's doing a survey of all his employees, the top management employees, 16,000 I think of them. That statement has a wave of implications following from that. Mark is essentially putting his stake in the ground and saying, actually, this isn't good enough. We've effed up. We're going to make this better. In addition, with the piece around people, with women leaving their businesses halfway through, absolutely. I think there's just a recent statistic that 50% of all women are more likely to leave their career mid-level, and 50% of those, it's not that they're just going off to have a family, as some might assume. They're actually jumping off to start their own company. Alternatively, walking across the street to your competitor. And it's £37,000 to replace an employee on average. So think about it. It's millions, thousands, millions, billions of money of your investment gone walking across that street. So what can you do? Well, 3.4 is the number it takes to change the ratio, change the balance of decisions being made in a boardroom with women. How can you get there? It's about mentoring. I urge you all today, whether you're a female, male, look at your mentees. I encourage you to have 2 or 3, and I encourage you to have a selection, a mix of women and men, and equally women. If you haven't got a male mentee, get one. You're being a role model for them. It's about ways of thinking. And it's that change, that tipping point, that can have such an impact.
Yeah, I suppose that ties in quite well with what Ross was saying earlier as well about having people 45 and over in management level situations and then using them as sort of like a guideline of how you should move forward.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say that all of you have quite a lot of experience with startups. And as Sarah was just mentioning, quite a lot of women jump off to go and start their own business because they sort of think, oh, it might be a better environment for me actually. Would you say that this is damaging to the tech industry? Just Claire, maybe start. I think that's a bit of a...
Absolutely not. You go out there and be bold and get into a position of leadership and just drive your organization forward and change some of the statistics. Because if your organization doesn't do it for you, you've got to do it for yourself. Go out there, start your own company, and be one of those women who stands up on stage, makes a big noise about what she's accomplished and her team. And then you're part of that group of people we can highlight in the media and say, here are the 100 women in fintech who've done some awesome stuff, everybody. So go off and do your SME, and that's fine. And fail if you want to, and succeed to great heights if you need to as well. It doesn't matter. But that control, that empowerment, and the ability for us to embrace entrepreneurship is really important.
So I'd say there's a flip side to that, obviously coming from a larger organization. And actually it's something that we've really recognized. So, just to echo some of the comments that have been made earlier, some of the things we've done around sponsorship, around targets, around helping women through their careers get the experience they need to take some of those leadership roles have actually been really effective. We've got great maternity policies, we've introduced our shared parental leave, and all of that is designed to help women succeed before they have children, but then also when they come back into the workplace. And actually, we find the thing that really damages our sort of proportion of women is not people that we've nurtured up through their careers leaving. We actually have quite good retention of our women. It's actually when we bring people, recruit people at experienced higher levels into the firm, we just can't find the talent in the industry to bring in equal proportions. So, we just really, that's where we really struggle. So I think we've done a lot kind of inside our organisation to sort of nurture our talent. But, for me, there's a much more systemic issue about just the industry in general and the talent pool that actually, ultimately, we're all competing in.
Yeah. So I suppose whether they're in a startup or whether they're in a large organisation, something good is going to be happening for the tech industry. What advice would you give a woman who is hoping to start her own company? Because quite often women can struggle to get funding, etc. Russ, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I think building on some of the points here, I think getting a good mentor and a couple of good role models is important. Both women and men who can be there as a sounding board, who can give sound advice. I think it's really important that somebody like that, a woman starting a business, has that mentoring, has that advice-getting mechanism. It's tough out there for women starting a business. One of the things that we were talking about in our event yesterday is, when you're starting up a business and if you're looking to raise funding, if you look at where the funders are, the angels, the venture capitalists, the bulk of them are men. And they don't necessarily get why a woman would want to start her own business. So, you need people around you who can be that sanity check to say, look, why am I doing this? Yes, this is why I'm doing this. And to get that support and to get a bit of that encouragement and nurturing from time to time. So I think that's really key here. And I think we should all be embracing that. And it's not just women mentoring women, it's men mentoring women. And to find those men who can do that.
Yeah.
Wendi?
There are also, I think it's really great, there are also increasing opportunities and resources specifically targeted at women founders. I have a friend who recently founded her own company, and she was selected to join a bunch of other female founders on a trip to the Silicon Valley, and it was all paid for by Google. And I think it's opportunities like this that allow you to connect with other similar-minded women and to explore the opportunities that are out there for you. That really, I think, motivates and helps you to, stay confident in your initial passion. So I think exploring all of the different resources that are available for women and finding the communities out there are geared at women will definitely help.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, I would just say that smart partnering is really important. So whenever you're starting a business, male or female, I would say that one of the big things that needs to happen is join the dots, connect with people who've already made the mistakes so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And I truly believe in partnering in a smart way so that you can create leverage and accelerate very, very fast into the space that you've chosen to be in. So join the dots, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and reinventing it is really a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Sarah, I know you were mentioning mentoring earlier. Is there anything else, any other advice that you would give a woman trying to begin a business?
Absolutely. I think it comes from your own sense of confidence. That's a big piece. Women, sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. It's really about being able to suck in that courage and push yourself. Just push those limits. I never in a million years thought that I would end up founding a community for South London and be able to connect, champion and support the tech startup industry. And it felt uncomfortable. It did, and lonely as well sometimes. But I had, as Russ mentions there, about being able to get out there and find those mentors, I was very, very lucky, pushed myself further and further. But ultimately, I think it also comes down to community. If you look at greatness, it can only be achieved with only these kind of little movements all together. So that's something that I definitely encourage for women to do, to be able to just day by day a step forward, and it can turn into something incredible.
And if I may, I'm going to jump in on that because we talked about this last night. I actually think, and maybe it's easier for me to say this, but I actually think this is going to require bolder moves. I think the step-by-step, incremental way forward is good, but I hope we're not sitting here in 5 or 10 years having the same discussion, because that would be a mistake. And I think for all of us in this room, we're going to have to collectively make a lot of noise. We're going to have to get people a bit angry, a bit frustrated, and say, hey, this is the way it's going to have to be. We're missing a huge trick, not only from a business point of view, but from a human issue point of view, by not getting more women to run businesses, to get more women onto the senior management levels of top companies, and to get more women in boards. And if people don't like it, if people are put back by that, well, my view is so be it. Because I hope the next generation, for many of you in this room, for the younger people that I see, you don't have to deal with this issue. And I think, from a business point of view, we are creating a world-leading technology sector here in London and beyond across the UK. That is going to require so many more women to come into this space and to lead these businesses and to be on the boards of these companies and to be that voice. I think the good news that I see, and I sit on 3 tech company boards, and sadly most of them are made up of men, but there is an opening that I'm seeing over the past 2 to 3 years that I didn't see 5 or 10 years ago, where I'm looking at people who I wouldn't normally think say, we need more women on this board. We need more diversity on this board. It's starting to get in there. That message is getting through. But my advice to everybody is, let's just put a foot through it and really kick it in. We have to do it.
Yeah.
So I'd really agree with what you've said there, but where I really think we can make the biggest difference is actually by getting those sorts of messages into schools. Okay. Because I think one of the big issues, and we've just done some research on this, is just about the aspirations that girls have in terms of the types of careers that they think they want to go into. And I was just reading it this morning, and it is shocking, how many girls still see teaching, hairdressing and nursing as the main things that they could go into, and looking at STEM subjects and kind of still seeing them as sort of boy subjects that qualify people for male-dominated careers.
And I think we have to do both. I think you're absolutely right, but what I worry about is that we're not necessarily going to see the benefit of that for another generation.
Yeah.
And so while we're making those changes with all of the great suggestions that are coming from this panel and what we're seeing out there, at the same time, I think more drastic action is needed in the here and now over the next 2, 3, 5 years to make that change, so that when that generation comes through, I think the landscape hopefully will look and feel very different.
I mean, so I do think it needs to happen at all levels through the education system, but I still think we've got an opportunity with, girls who are now making GCSE choices, A-level choices. Actually, they're not that far away in terms of coming out and into the workplace. To me, there's just a big issue with the general talent pool, and making these sorts of careers attractive to girls and giving them the aspiration that actually, that looks quite interesting. I could go and do that. And I think we've still got a mountain to climb on that.
Yeah, some really, really good points there. I think if you guys are ready, we might open the floor up to some questions. So I think that there are roaming mics somewhere. Where are they? Okay, here and here. So if when you're asked, you could just say your name and where you're from, and then direct the question at either the whole panel or the panel that you're most interested in. So if we could have this gentleman over here first.
Thank you. Hello, the name's Lawrence Basco. I'm the IT sector lead in London for the National Apprenticeship Service. Just want to ask, you won't be surprised by the question, that considering that one of the solutions for encouraging women into the sector in a more structured format and for keeping them for attention, have the panel's organisation considered taking on apprentices with an IT framework?
Okay.
So we've started taking on apprentices in the last year or two, and actually, it's been quite a culture change for us in Accenture, given the sort of graduate recruitment we've always historically done. And actually, we've found it very successful. And to me, back to the points I was making around getting in there early at a young age, actually people just understanding that these apprenticeship schemes are the sorts of things that they can get into, that's hugely powerful. And then once we can get them into the company, then we have the opportunity to sort of train them, move them around, give them just more information about the different types of careers they can be successful in. So yeah, absolutely. You know, we're very supportive of the apprenticeship scheme.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I just want to say it's so important to our organization, NTIC. We have one of our apprentices in the audience here today supporting us and this agenda for us. And at NTIC, we have over 60% women represented right through all levels of the organization. It's also critical towards the tech sector or tech accelerator spaces, the incubators, the tech cities, the Croydon tech cities, that they establish these relationships with apprenticeship programs to showcase that you don't have to go the traditional route when you're, you know, developing your own career, that you can get greater breadth, greater depth, greater attention, greater responsibility when you go in and become an apprentice at perhaps a smaller organization or a startup in this community. So it's really important.
Jacqueline, did you?
Yeah. So we've been looking at this as in my role as Deputy President of Tech UK, and one of the things that we're interested in is relabeling apprenticeships, because it's quite a male word, and so thinking about how we rebrand what an apprenticeship role might be called, and how that might be interesting to female younger people. So maybe internships or something like that. So we're just rebranding that at the moment, and I think we'll probably get more females once we change our language around that. So just a thought there that we can maybe collaborate on. Yeah.
Can we take another question? This lady at the back here, if that's okay. Over here. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, I'm Clare Rains, working in IT consultancy. It's to pick up on something that Sarah and Arabel said, I believe, about experienced hires and how there aren't as many women on the shortlists or in the talent pool. I want to know how much you thought the actual recruitment process affected that. So the fact that the early stages are based on CVs and potentially women aren't quite as good at selling themselves or bragging on their CVs to actually get past that initial stage, rather than they don't actually have the talent to do those roles.
Yeah. Do you know, it's really interesting. So with everything, as far as I'm concerned, it starts with your own network. If you look at your friends, look at your colleagues around you, the chances are probably they'll be the same like for like. And I'd absolutely encourage individuals to just either expand their networks or join in, other different organisations like Tech London Advocates for Women in Tech. But the hiring process is there's many pieces around that. Everything from language used in job descriptions. We know that with some of the tech roles, instead of saying that it's all about PHP or Java or yada yada, actually women are more responsive to solutions. It's just a little change of language and being able to make it more driven towards the outputs. Women are great at driving solutions to issues. So if it's got something along the lines of that within the job description, chances are they'll be more interested in that. Another really easy thing to do is we were talking with the GM of eBay. And essentially, they've gone through an absolute radicalization over the last couple of years. They did a really simple trick. They asked all their managers to go up to the women in their team and encourage them to apply for a further senior role within the company. Doesn't matter if they thought that they were going to get it or they weren't going to get it. It was just the process of A, having somebody believe in you, and B, being able to actually just push your boundaries and try. And what they found, that more women did start to apply for these roles, and as a consequence, they have more women in management positions than they do men. So it's flipped slightly. But if looking at the hiring process, what I would advise is work with recruiters who have a diverse network, be able to look at the language used both in job descriptions and how you're encouraging others. And finally, being able to actively go out and reach to ladies in your team and encourage them to apply.
I'll just add a couple of things to it. So it is something that we're conscious of. It was you who asked the question, wasn't it? And there's two things that we've tried to do that are helping with it, but I don't think we're necessarily there yet. So the first one is actually how we approach some of our recruiting processes and events. So instead of just literally being very sort of transactional around you send your CV in, you come for an interview and the sort of traditional way of recruiting, we actually do many more events now where people can actually come into our office, see how we work, meet some people, and it's a much less transactional and kind of much less threatening way of bringing people in. And it's a little bit sort of try before you buy. You can see what the work's like, meet some of the people before sort of going formally into the process. And we're also working with the agencies that we work with, so the actual headhunters and recruitment agencies, firstly to sort of target them and really encourage them. We want more women in this process and getting them to help coach people through, their CVs and making sure that we're getting good matches between the jobs that we are advertising and the people that they've got on their books. And so both of those things are helping. I'm sure there's always more we can do, but they're moving us forward.
Brilliant. I think we have time for one more quick question, if possible. Should we?
Oh, let him
come
ask
to this
one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Should we come to this gentleman here? Go ahead, Dominic.
Dominic Connor, I'm actually writing about girls in technology, and ever since I started writing about getting girls to do technology, I've been sent a series of press releases and events, and one of the things I've been doing, and I think I've upset a few people when I did it, I said, have you actually done any counting of this? Because there are hundreds and literally hundreds and hundreds of these initiatives, girls coding clubs, changing the syllabus. But when we look at the numbers, and I hate using the word numbers when I talk about women in tech, they don't change. And I get publicly denounced in some forms. I said, you did this, you spent all this money, and A, you either won't tell us what the numbers are, or B, they went down, didn't they? Do you know of any initiatives that actually work? And I'm going to be very male here and define work as the numbers went up afterwards.
Yeah. So certainly in the boardroom, the numbers of women in boardrooms has gone up to 23%, which is a much higher percentage than it was. For girls, I agree. But I ask you to imagine the scenario. If we hadn't done any of those things, we would have been even further behind. So I agree. The numbers are tricky to change, for sure. And we need to figure out what the secret sauce is now. And I don't think it's any one answer. But I just worry that if we had done none of it, then we would have been, not only flatlining, but really in a worse place. So, but I also agree with you. 16% of women in technology being fed from an ever-decreasing talent pool is shocking. And the UK is a long, long, long way behind many other economies where we need to make a difference here. So there is a big job to do, and I think nobody denies that. How we move the numbers, I think we've got to continue to figure that out and do more of what we're doing. But we need to get them in at an earlier and earlier age, rather than just right at the death when they're choosing between, tech and business, as an example. But also maybe, I've got a business degree and a language degree, so I haven't actually come from the tech, background, and I hadn't chosen any tech subjects, but I found myself very much inside a tech sector. So I think we need to broaden what we consider to be technology as well, and maybe count it differently too.
I think we have seen a change over the last few years. I'm sure Russ can attest to this, but in female founders, that has increased. And in terms of the resources we provide young women, female entrepreneurs, like Astia and Angel Academy, and as you say, there are many, many coding clubs that are, but they're filling, and every year they grow in size, and hopefully we can make the connections to the larger corporations or to the business opportunities for them. But I just want to make one small comment, if I may, about your question. Women are just as passionate about numbers as men are.
Can I just make one point? Because I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and we have to pay attention to it. I think the thing that I worry about when kind of moving through all the different circles that I move through is I really worry about what we keep throwing at our teachers. You know, we're now introducing coding into the curriculum. Fantastic. You know, the speed of change in the technology sector is enormous. Are we equipping our teachers? Are we supporting them? Are we paying them enough? Because they are the role models that many of these young boys and girls are seeing for 5 or 6 hours a day. And if they're overwhelmed by this, or if they're not effective in this rapidly changing technological world, then you know, education as a solution, which I'm a huge believer in, we're missing a trick here. And that might be part of where this is falling down. I don't know, but it's my suspicion.
Fantastic. Some really good questions and a really, really good session there. Lots of really great points made. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for. So if you could all join me in thanking our panel.